Welcome to the Buddhist audio bookshelf, where wisdom meets the listener's ear. Today, we present a profound journey into the heart of Buddhist teachings with our latest audiobook, 37 Limbs of Enlightenment, also known as the 37 Factors of Enlightenment, Thien Phuc. This essential guide illuminates the path to awakening, offering listeners an in-depth exploration of the practices and principles that can lead to ultimate liberation and understanding. As you embark on this enlightening journey, we kindly ask you to support our mission of spreading the Buddha's teachings. Please subscribe to our channel, like this audiobook, and share it with friends, family, and fellow seekers. Your engagement helps us bring these timeless teachings to more ears and hearts around the world. Thank you for choosing to deepen your understanding with us. May this audiobook be a valuable companion on your path to enlightenment. Let's begin with Preface. Preface. After mighty and terrible struggles with himself, the Buddha had conquered in his body all those natural defects and human appetites and desires that prevent our ability of seeing the truth. He had to overcome all the bad influences of the sinful world around him. Like a soldier fighting desperately in battle against many enemies, he struggled like a hero who conquers. He eventually gained his objects. Right after the Buddha's enlightenment at Buddha Gaya, he moved slowly across India until he reached the deer park near Benares, where he preached to 5 ascetics his first sermon. The sermon preached about the middle way between all extremes, the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. In the deer park, Benares, at first the Buddha was ignored by the 5 brothers of Kandinya, but as the Buddha approached them, they felt that there was something very special about him, so they automatically stood up as he drew near. Then the 5 men, with great respect, invited the Buddha to teach them what he has enlightened. So, the Buddha delivered his first teaching. Turning the wheel of the Dharma, he began to preach. "O monk, you must know that there are 4 noble truths. The first is the noble truth of suffering. Life is filled with the miseries and afflictions of old age, sickness, unhappiness and death. People chase after pleasure but find only pain. Even when they do find something pleasant, they soon grow tired of it. Nowhere is there any real satisfaction or perfect peace. The second is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. When our mind is filled with greed and desire and wandering thoughts, sufferings of all types follow. The third is the noble truth of the end of suffering. When we remove all craving, desire, and wandering thoughts from our mind, sufferings will come to an end. We shall experience undescribable happiness. And finally, the noble truth of the path. The path that helps us reach the ultimate wisdom. This first sermon became the core teachings of Buddhism, which include supportive conditions leading to Bodhi or Buddhahood. As for devout Buddhists, these auxiliary means can help us in meditation, auxiliary discipline, and aid to faith or virtue. In around 2009, Thien Phuc compassed a set of 8 books titled Basic Buddhist Doctrines. However, it's really difficult for people, especially lay people with a lot of family duties, to read or to study the total of 6,184 big-sized pages. So, Thien Phuc extracted Chapter 21 in Volume 2, tried to revise and publish it as a small book titled 37 Limbs of Enlightenment. This little book titled 37 Limbs of Enlightenment is not a philosophical study of profound Buddhist teachings, but a book that simply presents some teachings that implied in the first sermon of the Buddha. Devout Buddhists should always remember that cultivation in Buddhism does not necessarily mean to renounce the world and to enter into a temple as a monk or nun, but it means to enter into practicing well-being exercises that are linked to established daily life patterns, makes our lives more peaceful. The Buddha already explained clearly about the path of elimination of sufferings which he found out, and he advanced to the Buddhahood on that path. The journey to reach the other shore, nirvana, still demands continuous efforts with right understanding and practice. Presently, even with so many books available on Buddhism, I ventured to compose this booklet titled 37 Limbs of Enlightenment in Vietnamese and English to introduce basic things in Buddhism to all Vietnamese Buddhist followers, especially Buddhist beginners, hoping this little contribution will help Buddhists in different levels to understand on how to achieve and lead a life of peace, mindfulness, and happiness. Thien Phuc. Chapter 1. Cores of Buddhism. After the Buddha's enlightenment at Buddha Gaya, he moved slowly across India until he reached the Deer Park near Benares, where he preached to 5 ascetics his first sermon. The sermon preached about the middle way between all extremes, the 4 noble truths and the noble eightfold path. In the Deer Park, Benares, at first the Buddha was ignored by the 5 brothers of Kandinya, but as the Buddha approached them, they felt that there was something very special about him, so they automatically stood up as he drew near. Then the 5 men, with great respect, invited the Buddha to teach them what he has enlightened. So, the Buddha delivered his first teaching. Turning the wheel of the Dharma, he began to preach. "O monk, you must know that there are 4 noble truths. The first is the noble truth of suffering. Life is filled with the miseries and afflictions of old age, sickness, unhappiness and death. People chase after pleasure but find only pain. Even when they do find something pleasant, they soon grow tired of it. Nowhere is there any real satisfaction or perfect peace. The second is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. When our mind is filled with greed and desire and wandering thoughts, sufferings of all types follow. The third is the noble truth of the end of suffering. When we remove all craving, desire, and wandering thoughts from our mind, sufferings will come to an end. We shall experience undescribable happiness. And finally, the noble truth of the path. The path that helps us reach the ultimate wisdom. The path leading to the end, extinction, of suffering, the fourth of the 4 axioms, i.e. the Eightfold Noble Path. The truth of the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, the way of cure. To practice the Eightfold Noble Truths, the Buddha taught, whoever accepts the 4 dogmas and practices the Eightfold Noble Path will put an end to births and deaths. In short, finally, the Buddha already discovered supportive conditions leading to Bodhi or Buddhahood. The noble truth of the right way includes the following noble paths. The Eightfold Noble Truth, 7 Bodhi shares, 4 right efforts, 4 sufficiencies, 5 faculties, 5 powers, 4 elements of popularity, 4 immeasurable minds, and 4 kinds of mindfulness. To someone, all that the Buddha said can only be considered as life of the Buddha himself. However, in fact, the example that the Buddha and his immediate disciples set, that glorious feat of a man who stood before men as a man and declared a path of deliverance. To others, Buddhism would mean the massive doctrine as recorded in the Buddhist Tripitaka literature, and it is described a very lofty, abstruse, complex and learned philosophy of life. The name Buddhism comes from the word bodhi, which means waking up, and thus Buddhism is the philosophy of awakening. Therefore, the real definition of Buddhism is noble truth. The Buddha did not teach from theories. He always taught from a practical standpoint based on his understanding, his enlightenment, and his realization of the truth. This philosophy has its origins in the experience of the man named Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha, who was himself awakened at the age of 36. Buddhism is now older than 2,500 years old and has more than 800 million followers worldwide, including Chinese followers in mainland China. People in the West had heard of the Buddha and his teaching as early as the 13th century when Marco Polo, 1254–1324, the Italian traveler who explored Asia, wrote accounts on Buddhism in his book, Travels of Marco Polo. From the 18th century onwards, Buddhist texts were brought to Europe and translated into English, French and German. Until 100 years ago, Buddhism was mainly an Asian philosophy, but increasingly it is gaining adherents in Europe and America. At the beginning of the 20th century, Alan Bennett, an Englishman, went to Burma to become a Buddhist monk. He was renamed Ananda Mataya. He returned to Britain in 1908. He was the first British person to become a Buddhist monk. He taught Dharma in Britain. Since then, Buddhist monks and nuns from Sri Lanka, Thailand, Japan, China and other Buddhist countries in Asia have come to the West, particularly over the last 70 years. Many of these teachers have kept to their original customs, while others have adapted to some extent to meet the demands of living in a Western society. In recent years, there has been a marked growth of interest in Buddhism in Europe. The membership of existing societies has increased, and many new Buddhist centers have been established. Their members include large numbers of professionals and scholars. Today, Britain alone has over 140 Buddhist centers found in most major cities. To the Buddha, man is a supreme being, thus, he taught, "Be your own torch and your own refuge. Do not seek refuge in any other person." This was the Buddha's truthful word. He also said, "All realizations come from effort and intelligence that derive from one's own experience. Man is the master of his destiny, since he can make his life better or worse. If he tries his best to cultivate, he can become a Buddha." Buddhism is the only way that leads people from the evil to the virtuous, from deluded to fully enlightened sagehood. Buddhism is a philosophy, a way of life or a religion. The religion of the awakened one. One of the three great world religions. It was founded by the historical Buddha Sakyamuni over 25 centuries ago. Sakyamuni expounded the Four Noble Truths as the core of his teaching, which he had recognized in the moment of his enlightenment. He had shown people how to live wisely and happily, and his teaching soon spread from India throughout Asia and beyond. The Buddha admitted the presence of sufferings and afflictions in human life because of the ignorant attachment to all things. But it is truly wrong to believe that Buddhism is a religion of pessimism. This is not true even with a slight understanding of basic Buddhism. When the Buddha said that human life was full of sufferings and afflictions, he did not mean that life was pessimistic. In this manner, the Buddha admitted the presence of sufferings and afflictions in human life, and by a method of analysis, he pointed out to his disciples that attachment to things without a correct view as to their nature is the cause of sufferings and afflictions. Impermanence and change are inherent in the nature of all things. This is their true nature and this is the correct view. He concluded, as long as we are at variance with this truth, we are bound to run into conflicts. We cannot alter or control the nature of things. The result is hope deferred made the heart sick. The only solution lies in correcting our point of view. In fact, the thirst for things begets sorrow. When we like someone or something, we wish that they belonged to us and were with us forever. We never think about their true nature, in other words, or we refuse to think about their true nature. We expect them to survive forever, but time devours everything. Eventually we must yield to old age and freshness of the morning dew disappears before the rising sun. In the Nirvana Sutra, when Ananda and other disciples were so sad and cried when the Buddha lay on his deathbed, the Buddha taught, "Ananda, lament not. Have I not already told you that from all good things we love and cherish we would be separated, sooner or later that they would change their nature and perish? How then can Tathagata survive? This is not possible." This is the philosophy which underlies the doctrine of the three marks, impermanence, suffering and no self, of existence of the Buddhist view of life and the world. All Buddhist values are based on this. The Buddha expected of his disciples, both laity and clergy, good conduct and good behavior and decent standard of living in every way. With him, a simple living did not amount to degenerate human existence or to suffer oneself. The Buddha advised his disciples to follow the middle path. It is to say not to attach to things nor to abandon them. The Buddha does not deny the beauty, however, If one does not understand the true nature of the objects of beauty, one may end up with sufferings and afflictions or grief and disappointment. In the Theragatha, the Buddha brought up the story of the Venerable Phuc. One day, going to the village for alms, Venerable Phuc sat down beneath a tree. Then a hawk, seizing some flesh, flew up into the sky. Other hawks saw that, attacked it, making it drop the piece of meat. Another hawk grabbed the fallen flesh and was plundered by other hawks. And Phuc thought, just like that meat are worldly desires, common to all, full of pain and woe. And reflecting hereon, and how they were impermanent and so on, he continued to contemplate and eventually won arahantship. The Buddha advised his disciples not to avoid or deny or attach to objects of beauty. Try not to make objects of beauty or objects of like or dislike. Whatever there is in the world, pleasant or unpleasant, we all have a tendency to attach to them, and we develop a like or dislike to them. Thus we continue to experience sufferings and afflictions. Buddhists recognize beauty where the sense can perceive it, but in beauty we should also see its own change and destruction. And Buddhists should always remember the Buddha's teaching regarding to all component things. Things that come into being, undergo change and are eventually destroyed. Therefore, Buddhists admire beauty, but have no greed for acquisition and possession. Chapter 2. A summary of the 37 conditions leading to Bodhi. After mighty and terrible struggles with himself, the Buddha had conquered in his body all those natural defects and human appetites and desires that prevent our ability of seeing the truth. He had to overcome all the bad influences of the sinful world around him. Like a soldier fighting desperately in battle against many enemies, he struggled like a hero who conquers. He eventually gained his objects. He also discovered supportive conditions leading to Bodhi or Buddhahood. 37 limbs of enlightenment comprise of 4 right efforts, 4 sufficiencies, 4 foundations of mindfulness, 5 faculties, 5 powers, 7 limbs of enlightenments, and the Eightfold Noble Path. Right effort of 4 kinds of restraint, or 4 essentials to be practiced vigilantly. A Sanskrit term for effort. Right effort of 4 kinds of restraint, or 4 essentials to be practiced vigilantly, or 4 factors that are developed through meditation and moral training. In Buddhism, virya is the energy expended to direct the mind persistently, continuously toward cultivation. Even ordinary people who are hardworking and industrious have the capacity to be heroic in whatever they do. Devout Buddhists who are endowed with courageous effort will be bold in going forward, unafraid of the difficulties we may encounter in the path of cultivation. The special characteristics of virya is an enduring patience in the face of suffering or difficulty. Virya is the ability to see to the end no matter what, even if one has to grit one's teeth. Devout Buddhists need courageous effort, with its characteristic of forbearance in the face of difficulty. If we raise our energy level, the mind will gain enough strength to bear with challenges. Besides, virya has the Urdhapāda or 4 sufficiencies, 4 meditations, or 4 foundations of mindfulness, or 4 objects on which memory or thought should dwell. 4 types of Buddhist meditation for eradicating illusions and attaining enlightenment. Hinayana calls these practices basis of action, Kamathana, which is one of the modes of analytical meditation. 5 roots or faculties are the 5 roots that give rise to other wholesome dharmas. The 5 sense organs can be entrances to the hells. At the same time, they can be some of the most important entrances to the great enlightenment, for with them, we create karmas and sins, but also with them, we can practice the right way. The 5 powers or faculties for any cultivator or the powers of 5 spiritual faculties which are developed through strengthening the 5 roots. Thus in Buddhism, power or ability is always used as the sense organs to discern the truth. In Mahayana Buddhism, it is the 8th perfection, paramita, of the 10-fold list of perfections that a bodhisattva cultivates on the path to Buddhahood. 7 factors of enlightenment bring extraordinary benefits for Buddhist practitioners. Once fully developed, they have the power to bring samsaric suffering to an end. This means that the perpetual, cyclical birth and death of beings who are composed of mental and physical phenomena can come to a complete stop. Besides, these factors of enlightenment also have the capacity to pulverize Mara's armies, the destructive inner forces which keep us bound on the wheel of suffering and rebirth. The Buddha and enlightened ones develop the factors of enlightenment and are thus able to transcend all 3 realms of sensual pleasures, realm of subtle forms and formless realms. When fully developed, these factors of enlightenment bring practitioners to attain the peace and joy of nirvana. In this they are comparable to strong and effective medicine. They confer the strength of mind necessary to withstand the ups and downs of life. Moreover, they often cure physical and mental illnesses. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 7 limbs, factors, of enlightenment, or the 7 bodhi shares. Practicing the 7 awakening states will result in the following achievements: elimination of evil, development of virtue, feeling of cheerfulness versus suffering, final enlightenment. However, one does not become enlightened by merely gazing into the sky or looking around on the earth. One does not enlighten by reading or studying the scriptures, nor by thinking, nor by wishing for enlightened state to burst into one's mind. There are certain necessary conditions or prerequisites which cause enlightenment to arise. How can one develop these factors in himself or herself? By means of cultivation of precepts, meditation, and wisdom. The Buddha said, "O Bhikkhus, if the 4 foundations of mindfulness are practiced persistently and repeatedly, the 7 types of bhajangas will be automatically and fully developed." Practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness does not simply mean studying them, thinking of them, listening to discourses about them, nor discussing them. What we must do is be directly and experientially aware of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 bases on which mindfulness can be established. The Noble Eightfold Path is the 4th noble truth in the 4 noble truths that can help us prevent problems or deal with any problems we may come across in our daily life. This is the path that leads to the end of sufferings and afflictions. If we follow it, we are on the way to less suffering and more happiness. The 8 right, correct ways. The path leading to release from suffering, the goal of the 3rd in the 4 noble truths. These are 8 in the 37 bodhi ways to enlightenment. Practicing the Noble Eightfold Path can bring about real advantages, such as improvement of personal conditions. It is due to the elimination of all evil thoughts, words, and actions that we may commit in our daily life, and to the continuing practice of charitable work, improvement of living conditions. If everyone practiced this noble path, the world we are living now would be devoid of all miseries and sufferings caused by hatred, struggle, and war between men and men, countries and countries, or peoples and peoples. Peace would reign forever on earth, attainment of enlightenment or bodhi awareness. The Noble Eightfold Path is the first basic condition for attaining bodhi consciousness that is untarnished, while alaya consciousness is still defiled. The Eightfold Noble Path consists in right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, right living, right endeavor, right memory, and right meditation. Right view means to abandon a self-centered way of looking at things, and to have a right view of the Buddha, that is, nothing has its own self, everything exists due to temporary combination. If this exists, the other exists. If this ceases to exist, the other is in no way to be able to exist. Right thinking means not to include toward a self-centered attitude toward things, but to think of things rightly. Right view teaches us to abandon the 3 evils of the mind, such as covetousness, resentment, and evil-mindedness, and to think of things rightly, with as generous a mind as the Buddha. Not to have greedy mind, covetousness, or not to think only of one's own gain, not to have the angry mind, resentment, or not to get angry when things do not turn out as one wishes. Not to have the evil mind, evil-mindedness. Right speech teaches us to use right words in our daily lives, and to avoid the four evils of the mouth, such as not to lie, to use false language, not to speak with a double tongue, not to commit ill speaking, and not to use improper language, careless language. Right action means daily conduct in accordance with the precepts of the Buddha. It is to say one must refrain from the three evils of the body that hinder right action, such as needless killing, stealing, and committing adultery or other sexual misconduct. Right living means to gain food, clothing, shelter, and other necessities of life in a right way. Right living teaches us not to earn our livelihood through work that makes trouble for others, or through a career useless to society, but to live on a justifiable income that we can obtain through right work and a vocation useful to others. Right endeavor means to engage constantly in right conduct without being idle or deviating from the right way. Avoid such wrongs as the three evils of the mind, the evils of the mouth, and the three evils of the body. Right memory means to practice with a right mind as the Buddha did, that is, we must address ourselves to all things in the universe with a fair and right mind. And finally, right meditation means not to be agitated by any change of external circumstances. In short, the sutras that the Buddha taught for 45 years, these essential teachings can be extracted and summarized in the 37 limbs. These are essential teachings that Buddhist practitioners must have in order to step on the path of enlightenment and emancipation. Chapter 3. 4 Right Efforts. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, right effort of 4 kinds of restraint, or 4 essentials to be practiced vigilantly. A Sanskrit term for effort. Right effort of 4 kinds of restraint, or 4 essentials to be practiced vigilantly, or 4 factors that are developed through meditation and moral training. First, endeavor to start performing good deeds, to produce merit. Effort to initiate virtues not yet arisen. Bringing forth goodness not yet brought forth, bring good into existence. To induce the doing of good deeds. Here a practitioner rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen wholesome mental states. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen wholesome mental states. Second, endeavor to perform more good deeds. Effort to consolidate, increase, and not deteriorate virtues already arisen. Developing goodness that is already arisen, develop existing good. To increase merit when it was already produced. To encourage the growth and continuance of good deeds that have already started. Here a practitioner rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states. Third, endeavor to prevent evil from forming. Effort not to initiate sins not yet arisen, that is to say preventing evil that hasn't arisen from arising, or to prevent any evil from starting or arising, or to prevent emrit from arising. Here a practitioner rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen evil unwholesome mental states. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen evil unwholesome mental states. Fourth, endeavor to eliminate already formed evil. Effort to eliminate sins already arisen. Putting an end to existing evil, or to abandon demerit when it arises. To remove any evil as soon as it starts. Here a practitioner rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil unwholesome mental states that have arisen. Here a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil unwholesome mental states that have arisen. Also, according to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha taught about 8 occasions for making an effort for practitioners. The first occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who has a job to do. He thinks, I've got this job to do, but in doing it I won't find easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. I'll have to stir up my energy. And he stirs up sufficient energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The second occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who has done some work and thinks, well, I did the job, but because of it, I wasn't able to pay sufficient attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. So I will stir up sufficient energy. And he stirs up sufficient energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The third occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who has to go on a journey and thinks, I have to go on this journey, but in doing it, I won't find easy to pay attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. I'll have to stir up energy. And he stirs up sufficient energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The fourth occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who has been on a journey, and he thinks, I have been on a journey, but because of it, I wasn't able to pay sufficient attention to the teaching of the Buddhas. I'll have to stir up energy. And he stirs up energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The fifth occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who goes for alms round in a village or town and does not get his fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and he thinks, I've gone for alms round without getting my fill of food. So my body is light and fit. I'll stir up energy. And he stirs up energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The sixth occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who goes for alms round in a village or town and gets his fill of food, whether coarse or fine, and he thinks, I gone for alms round and get my fill of food. So my body is strong and fit. I'll stir up energy. And he stirs up energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The seventh occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who has some slight indisposition, and he thinks, I get some slight indisposition, and this indisposition might get worse, so I'll stir up energy. And he stirs up energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. The eighth occasion for making an effort. Here a monk who is recuperating from an illness, and he thinks, I am just recuperating from an illness. It might be that the illness will recur. So I'll stir up energy. And he stirs up energy to complete the uncompleted, to accomplish the unaccomplished, to realize the unrealized. Chapter 4. 4 Sufficiencies. The 4 sufficiencies are roads to fulfillment that the Buddha taught his disciples to equip them with the necessaries for them to be successful in their cultivation. The Buddha called them 4 sufficiencies for they are different roads that lead us onward. They are 4 different qualities of character, each reflecting a different strength of our personality. Practitioners should recognize which of them is our own particular strength, then we can develop what need be cultivated. One of the greatest challenges of practitioners is achieving the aim of emancipation and bringing the liberating qualities of the mind to dissolve in each moment of our life in the present. The path of our mindfulness must be continuing from moment to moment and must be right here in this very life. First, sufficiency of desire. Desire to develop magic, strong aspiration or will, intensive longing. We nourish a strong desire to practice meditation in our daily life. When we possess this quality, we will sense that nothing can finally impede us in our cultivation. Furthermore, when we possess this quality, we feel that we will not be satisfied until we have realized our goal. This is a desire to cultivate, a powerful aspiration that leads us to success. Here a monk develops concentration of intention accompanied by effort of the willpower. Second, sufficiency of concentration. Endeavor to remember to practice correct dharmas, intense concentration or thoughts, intense concentration. Memory or intense holding on to the position reached, or the love for the truth that keeps our mind continually absorbed in the practice. Endeavor to remember to practice correct dharmas has great purity of consciousness and is extremely ardent. Endeavor to remember to practice correct dharmas becomes a path to understanding when it fills our minds. Here a monk develops concentration of consciousness accompanied by effort of the thought power. Once we possess endeavor to remember to practice correct dharmas, we continually reflect on dharma and practice it. Nothing else seems equally important. Third, sufficiency of energy. Intensified effort, or effort to realize magic, vigor or exertion. This is the quality of energy. Practitioners who possess this quality do not only remain undaunted by the effort required, but also find inspiration in the challenge. Here a monk develops concentration of energy accompanied by strenuous efforts. In fact, the Buddha was a typical example for this quality. Virya is the energy expended to direct the mind persistently, continuously toward cultivation. Even ordinary people who are hardworking and industrious have the capacity to be heroic in whatever they do. Practitioners who are endowed with courageous effort will be bold in going forward, unafraid of the difficulties we may encounter in the path of cultivation. The special characteristics of Virya is an enduring patience in the face of suffering or difficulty. Virya is the ability to see to the end no matter what, even if one has to grit one's teeth. Practitioners need courageous effort, with its characteristic of forbearance in the face of difficulty. If we raise our energy level, the mind will gain enough strength to bear with challenges. Besides, Virya has the power to freshen the mind and keep it robust, even in difficult circumstances. There are two ways that help increase our energy level: to increase Virya by ourselves, and to seek out the inspiration from spiritual friends. Before his awakening, when he was still seeking the truth, he made this determination: if the end is attainable by human effort, I will not rest or relax until it is attained. Let only my skin and sinews and bones remain. Let my flesh and blood dry up. I will not stop the course of my effort until I win that which may be won by human ability, human effort, and human exertion. Fourth, sufficiency of contemplation. Meditation on one subject means an intense contemplation. Meditation on one subject, intense contemplation or meditation, investigation, or the state of dhyana. Some people have a strong interest in understanding the deepest and most profound aspects of the dharmas. They are not satisfied to know just the surface of things. Here a monk develops concentration of investigation accompanied by effort of deep thinking, for this kind of mind contemplates the immensity of samsara, the circle of birth and death, the immensity of planes of existence, and the implications in our lives in this world. Practitioners cultivate the reflective knowledge into the rapid arising and passing away of phenomena. Then we will have an intuitive insight of impermanence, suffering, and no self. Chapter 5. 4 kinds of mindfulness. 1. An overview of 4 kinds of mindfulness. 4 kinds of mindfulness are 4 basic subjects of Buddhist meditation: impermanence, suffering, no self, and impurity. If we always remember and meditate on these 4 principles of reality, we will gradually be released from the round of birth and death, samsara. The first basic subject of Buddhist meditation is contemplation on impurity of the body. Impurity is the nature of our bodies and minds. Impurity means the absence of an immaculate state of being, one that is neither holy nor beautiful. From the psychological and physiological standpoint, human beings are impure. This is not negative or pessimistic, but an objective perspective on human beings. If we examine the constituents of our bodies from the hair on our head to the blood, pus, phlegm, excrement, urine, the many bacteria dwelling in the intestines, and the many diseases present waiting for the opportunity to develop, we can see clearly that our bodies are quite impure and subject to decay. Our bodies also create the motivation to pursue the satisfaction of our desires and passions. That is why the sutra regards the body as the place where misleads gather. Let us now consider our psychological state. Since we are unable to see the truth of impermanence, suffering, and the selfless nature of all things, our minds often become the victims of greed and hatred, and we act wrongly. So the sutra says, the mind is the source of all confusion. The second basic subject of Buddhist meditation is contemplation. Suffering of sensation. The ancient people of India said that all things are composed of four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. Acknowledging this, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas understand that when there is a harmonious relationship among the four elements, there is peace. When the four elements are not in harmony, there is suffering. Because all things are created by a combination of these elements, nothing can exist independently or permanently. All things are impermanent. Consequently, when we are caught up in the things of the world, we suffer from their impermanent nature. And since all things are empty, when we are caught up by things, we also suffer from their emptiness. Awareness of the existence of suffering leads us to begin to practice the way of realization. This is the first of the Four Noble Truths. When we lose awareness of and do not meditate on the existence of suffering in all things, we can easily be pushed around by passions and desires for worldly things, increasingly destroying our lives in the pursuit of these desires. Only by being aware of suffering can we find its cause, confront it directly, and eliminate it. The third basic subject of Buddhist meditation is contemplation on impermanence of the mind, or the impermanent nature of all things. All things in this world, including human life, mountains, rivers, and political systems, are constantly changing from moment to moment. This is called impermanence in each moment. Everything passes through a period of birth, maturity, transformation, and destruction. This destruction is called impermanence in each cycle. To see the impermanent nature of all things, we must examine this closely. Doing so will prevent us from being imprisoned by the things of this world. The fourth basic subject of Buddhist meditation is the contemplation of selflessness of things. For practitioners, they should see the nature of our bodies are selfless. Buddhism teaches that human beings' bodies are composed of 5 aggregates, called skandhas in Sanskrit. If the form created by the 4 elements is empty and without self, then human beings' bodies, created by the unification of the 5 skandhas, must also be empty and without self. Human beings' bodies are involved in a transformation process from second to second, minute to minute, continually experiencing impermanence in each moment. By looking very deeply into the 5 skandhas, we can experience the selfless nature of our bodies, our passage through birth and death, and emptiness, thereby destroying the illusion that our bodies are permanent. In Buddhism, no self is the most important subject for meditation. By meditating no self, we can break through the barrier between self and other. When we no longer are separate from the universe, a completely harmonious existence with the universe is created. We see that all other human beings exist in us, and that we exist in all other human beings. We see that the past and the future are contained in the present moment, and we can penetrate and be completely liberated from the cycle of birth and death. 2. Details of 4 kinds of mindfulness. 4 meditations, or 4 foundations of mindfulness, or 4 objects on which memory or thought should dwell. 4 types of Buddhist meditation for eradicating illusions and attaining enlightenment. Hinayana calls these practices basis of action, kamathana, which is one of the modes of analytical meditation. Some 40 such meditations are given in the Visuddhimagga. 4. Measureless meditations, 10 impurities, 4 formless states, 10 universals, 10 remembrances, 1 sign, and 1 mental reflex. First, meditation and full realization on the impurity of the body. Due to illusions, most of us think that our body is more valuable than anything else. So it needs be provided with better foods and expensive clothes. Therefore, the struggle for life has come into play. Life is no longer a peaceful place, but a battlefield with greed, hatred, envy, arrogance, doubt, wrong views, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying. Evil karma is gradually formed as a result. Earnest Buddhists should view the body, eye, ear, skin, hair, nose, tongue, mouth, and us, etc., is unclean, Kwaun Than Ba Tan, which covered with a bag of skin. Inside are flesh, fat, bone, blood, mucus and waste matters of which no one wishes to touch. The body itself, if not being washed frequently with fragrant water and soap, no one wants to stay close to it. In addition, it is prone to decay minute after minute, second after second. If we stop breathing, what is the body called if not a corpse? During the first day, its color is changing. A few days later, it becomes bluish and produces offensive odor. At this time, even if that disintegrated body once was the most beautiful woman or a handsome man, no one wants to be close to it. Earnest Buddhists should always contemplate that the body is unclean. This contemplation is designed to cure greed, attachment, selfishness, and arrogance. Also, when people realize that they are physically and biologically the same, they would easily understand, tolerate and compassionate among themselves and others. The discrimination against the aging, people with disabilities, and the other race would be diminished. As we see above, through contemplation we see that our body is not clean. It is viewed as a skin bag containing dirty trash that will soon be disintegrated. Therefore, we must not become attached to it. The nature of our bodies and minds are impure, which is neither holy nor beautiful. From psychological and physiological standpoint, human beings are impure. This is not negative or pessimistic. Objectively speaking, if we examine the constituents of our bodies from the hair, blood, pus, excrement, urine, intestines, liver, and stomach, etc., they are dwelling places for many bacteria. Many diseases are awaiting for the opportunity to develop. In fact, our bodies are impure and subject to decay. The body is an abode of mindfulness. Contemplation of the impurity of the body, or to contemplate the body as impure. Mindfulness of the body is impure and utterly filthy, consider the body as impure. This negates the idea of purity. Here a monk abides contemplating body as body, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. Second, meditation and full realization on the evils of sensations. All sensations are evil, no matter they are painful, joyous, or indifferent sensations. To view all the feelings are painful. There are 3 kinds of feelings: pleasures, pain and neutral ones. However, according to Buddha's teaching, all feelings are painful because they are impermanent, transient, ungraspable, and therefore, they are unreal, elusive and deceptive. Kwaun Thoi Tho Koa. Furthermore, when you accept something from others, naturally, you have to do something else for them in return. It might cost you more than, for example, hearing someone bad-mouth on us, we feel angry at once. Seeing something profitable, we readily feel greedy. After all, if we don't cultivate, greed and anger are 2 uncontrollable agents which dominate and overwhelm our daily activities. To contemplate all the feelings are painful will gradually assist us to keep the feelings under control, as well as to purify our mind, and as a result, provide us the joy and peace. We experience good and bad feelings from our 5 senses. But good feelings never last long, and sooner or later they will disappear. Only bad feelings remain from which we will suffer. Nothing in the universe can exist independently or permanently. All things including bodies of human beings are composed of four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. When there is a harmonious relationship among these four elements, there is peace. When the four elements are not in harmony, there is suffering. Feelings as an abode of mindfulness, or to contemplate all feelings or sensations, lead to suffering, or mindfulness of feeling is the cause of suffering. Sensation or consciousness is always resulting in suffering, receiving is self-binding. Consider feelings or the senses as a source of suffering. This negates the idea of joy. Here a monk abides contemplating feelings as feelings, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering. According to the Satipatthana Sutta, contemplation of feelings or sensations means to be mindful of our feeling, including pleasant, unpleasant and indifferent or neutral. When experiencing a pleasant feeling, we should know that it is a pleasant feeling because we are mindful of the feeling. The same with regard to all other feelings. We try to experience each feeling as it really is. Generally, we are depressed when we are experiencing unpleasant feelings and are elated by pleasant feelings. Contemplation of feelings or sensations will help us to experience all feelings with a detached outlook, with equanimity, and avoid becoming a slave to sensations. Through the contemplation of feelings, we also learn to realize that there is only a feeling, a sensation. That feeling or sensation itself is not lasting, and there is no permanent entity or self that feels. According to the Satipatthana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught how, bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu abide contemplating feelings as feelings? Here, when feeling a pleasant feeling, a bhikkhu understands. I feel a pleasant feeling when feeling a painful feeling, he understands. I feel a painful feeling when feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands. I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. When feeling a worldly pleasant feeling, he understands. I feel a worldly pleasant feeling when feeling an unworldly pleasant feeling, he understands. I feel an unworldly pleasant feeling when feeling a worldly painful feeling, he understands. I feel a worldly painful feeling when feeling an unworldly painful feeling, he understands. I feel an unworldly painful feeling when feeling a worldly neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands. I feel a worldly neither painful nor pleasant feeling when feeling an unworldly neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands. I feel an unworldly neither painful nor pleasant feeling. In this way he abides contemplating feelings as feelings internally, or he abides contemplating feelings as feelings externally, or he abides contemplating feelings as feelings both internally and externally. Or else he abides contemplating in feelings their arising factors, or he abides contemplating in feelings their vanishing factors, or he abides contemplating in feelings both their arising and vanishing factors. Or else, mindfulness that there is feeling is simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and mindfulness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how a bhikkhu abides contemplating feelings as feelings. Cultivation on the sensations means meditation and full realization on the evils of sensations, no matter they are painful, joyous, or indifferent sensations. We experience good and bad feelings from our five senses. But good feelings never last long, and sooner or later they will disappear. Only bad feelings remain from which we will suffer. Nothing in the universe can exist independently or permanently. All things including bodies of human beings are composed of four elements: earth, water, fire, and air. When there is a harmonious relationship among these four elements, there is peace. When the four elements are not in harmony, there is suffering. Feelings as an abode of mindfulness, or to contemplate all feelings or sensations, lead to suffering, or mindfulness of feeling is the cause of suffering. Sensation or consciousness is always resulting in suffering, receiving is self-binding. Consider feelings or the senses as a source of suffering. This negates the idea of joy. Here a monk abides contemplating feelings as feelings, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. Third, meditation and full realization on the evanescence or impermanence of mind and thoughts. Realization the impermanence of mind and thoughts means contemplating the impermanence of all thoughts. To view the mind as transient or impermanent. Most people think that their mind is not changed, therefore, they attach to whatever they think. They believe that what they think reflects the truth. Probably some of them would discover that their mind is changing, but they refuse to accept it. Buddhist practitioners should always contemplate their wholesome and unwholesome minds. They are all subject to rising and destroying. They have no real entity. In sitting meditation, one will have the chance to recognize the facts that the mind keeps jumping in a fast speed as pictures on a movie screen. The body, therefore, always feels restless and eager to react on the thinking pulses. That is why people are rarely calmed down or experiencing true happiness. Earnest Buddhists should always remember that the mind does not have any real entity to itself. It changes from second to second. That's why the Buddha viewed the mind of an ordinary person as like a swinging monkey, the wind, lightning or a drop of morning dew. This contemplation helps the practitioner see that everything is changed, so that the practitioners will have the ability to eliminate attachment to what they think. Impermanence is the key nature of all things. From moment to moment, all things in this universe, including humans' bodies and minds, are in constant transformation. Everything passes through a period of birth, maturity, transformation and destruction. Mind is an abode of mindfulness, or mindfulness of the mind is impermanent, or to contemplate the mind is impermanent. Ordinary mind is impermanent, merely one sensation after another. Mind is ever-changing. Consider the mind to be a constant state of flux. This negates the idea of permanence. Here a monk abides contemplating mind as mind, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. However, on what mind do we have to contemplate? According to the Thirtyseven Sutra, the Buddha taught, cultivator searches all around for this thought. But what thought? Is it the passionate, hateful or confused one? Or is it the past, future, or present one? The past one no longer exists, the future one has not yet arrived, and the present one has no stability. In the Satipatthana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught, 4. Thought, Kasyapa, cannot be apprehended, inside, or outside, or in between. For thought is immaterial, invisible, non-resisting, inconceivable, unsupported, and non-residing. Thought has never been seen by any of the Buddhas, nor do they see it, nor will they see it. And what the Buddhas never see, how can that be observable process, except in the sense that dharmas proceed by the way of mistaken perception? Thought is like a magical illusion. By an imagination of what is actually unreal, it takes hold of a manifold variety of rebirths. A thought is like the stream of a river, without any staying power. As soon as it is produced, it breaks up and disappears. A thought is like a flame of a lamp, and it proceeds through causes and conditions. A thought is like lightning, it breaks up in a moment, and does not stay on searching thought all around. Cultivator does not see it in the skandhas, or in the elements, or in the sense fields. Unable to see thought, he seeks to find a trend of thought, and asks himself, whence is the genesis of thought? And it occurs to him that where is an object, there thought arises. Is then the thought one thing and the object another? No. What is the object that just is the thought? If the object were one thing and the thought another, then there would be a double state of thought. So the object itself is just thought. Can then thought review thought? No, thought cannot review thought. As the blade of a sword cannot cut itself, So can a thought not see itself. Moreover, vexed and pressed hard on all sides, thought proceeds, without any staying power, like a monkey or like the wind. It ranges far, bodiless, easily changing, agitated by the objects of sense, with the 6 sense fields for its sphere, connected with one thing after another. The stability of thought, its one-pointedness, its immobility, its undistraughtness, its one-pointed calm, its non-distraction, that is on the other hand called mindfulness, is to thought. In short, the contemplation of mind speaks to us of the importance of following and studying our own mind, of being aware of arising thoughts in our mind, including lust, hatred, and delusion, which are the root causes of all wrongdoing. In the contemplation of mind, we know through mindfulness both the wholesome and unwholesome states of mind. We see them without attachment or aversion. This will help us understand the real function of our mind. Therefore, those who practice contemplation of mind constantly will be able to learn how to control the mind. Contemplation of mind also helps us realize that the so-called mind is only an ever-changing process, consisting of changing mental factors, and that there is no abiding entity called ego or self. According to the Satipatthana Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha taught, Bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu abide contemplating mind as mind? Here a bhikkhu understands mind affected by lust as mind affected by lust, and mind unaffected by lust as mind unaffected by lust. He understands mind affected by hate as mind affected by hate, and mind unaffected by hate as mind unaffected by hate. He understands mind affected by delusion as mind affected by delusion, and mind unaffected by delusion as mind unaffected by delusion. He understands contracted mind as contracted mind, and distracted mind as distracted mind. He understands exalted mind as exalted mind, and unexalted mind as unexalted mind. He understands surpassed mind as surpassed mind, and unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed mind. He understands concentrated mind as concentrated mind, and unconcentrated mind as unconcentrated mind. He understands liberated mind as liberated mind, and unliberated mind as unliberated mind. In this way he abides contemplating mind as mind internally, or he abides contemplating mind as mind externally, or he abides contemplating mind as mind both internally and externally. Or else, he abides contemplating in mind its arising factors, or he abides contemplating in mind its vanishing factors, or he abides contemplating in mind both its arising and vanishing factors. Or else mindfulness that there is mind is simply established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and mindfulness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That is how a bhikkhu abides contemplating mind as mind. Fourth, contemplation of mental objects. Contemplation of mental objects means contemplation of mind objects, or meditation and full realization on the transiency selflessness of all elements, contemplating that all the dharmas are without their own nature. The contemplation of mental objects or mind contents means to be mindful on all essential dharmas. The contemplation of mental objects is not mere thinking or deliberation, it goes with mindfulness in discerning mind objects, as when they arise and cease. For example, when there is a sense desire arising, we immediately know that a sense desire is arising in us. When a sense desire is present, we immediately know that a sense desire is present in us. When a sense desire is ceasing, we immediately know that a sense desire is ceasing. In other words, when there is sense desire in us, or when sense desire is absent, we immediately know or be mindful that there is sense desire or no sense desire in us. We should always be mindful with the same regard to the other hindrances, as well as the 5 aggregates of clinging, body or material form, feelings, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. We should also be mindful with the 6 internal and 6 external sense bases. Through the contemplation of mental factors on the 6 internal and external sense bases, We know well the eye, the visible form, and the fetter that arises dependent on both the eye and the form. We also know well the ear, sounds, and related fetters, the nose, smells and related fetters, the tongue and tastes, the body and tactile objects, the mind and mind objects, and know well the fetter arising dependent on both. We also know the ceasing of the fetter. Similarly, we discern the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the 4 noble truths, and so on. Thus we live mindfully investigating and understanding the mental objects. We live independent, clinging to nothing in the world. Our life is totally free from any attachments. Practitioners must contemplate to see that everything is without self and has no real nature. Everything in the world, either physical or mental, is depend upon each other to function or survive. They are not free from one another or free to act on their ends, on their own will. They do not have a self. They are not capable of being self-existed. A human body is composed of billions of cells that depend on one another. One cell dies will affect so many other cells. Similarly, a house, a car, a road, a mountain, or a river all are compounded, not being self-existed. Everything, therefore, is a combination of other things. For instance, without nutritious foods, water, and fresh air, this body will certainly be reduced to a skeleton and eventually disintegrated. Thus the Buddha taught, all existence are selfless, empty, and impermanent. Practitioners who always contemplate the Dharma is without self, they should become more humble and likable. In fact, everything has no real nature, they are only a combination of the 4 elements, and each element is empty and without a self of itself, thus everything is without a self. Dharmas, real things and phenomena, as an abode of mindfulness, or mindfulness of Dharma as dependent, without self-entity, or to contemplate all things as being dependent, without self-nature or self-identity. All phenomena lack self-nature. There is no such thing as an ego. Things in general as being dependent and without a nature of their own. Things are composed and egoless, or consider everything in the world as being a consequence of causes and conditions, and that nothing remains unchanged forever. This negates the idea of personality. Here a monk abides contemplating manva objects as mind objects, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. According to Majjhima Nikaya and Thien Nikaya, the Buddha taught, Bhikkhus, whoever should be able to develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness for 7 years, one of these 2 fruits may be expected by him. Either arahantship in this life or the state of non-returning in the future. Bhikkhus, let alone 7 years. Should anyone be able to develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness for 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, then one of the 2 above-mentioned fruits may also be expected by him. Bhikkhus, let alone 1 year. Should anyone be able to develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness for 7 months, 6 months, half a month, then one of the 2 above-mentioned fruits may also be expected by him. Bhikkhus, let alone half a month. Should anyone be able to develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness for a week, then one of the 2 above-mentioned fruits may also be expected by him. This is the only way, Bhikkhus, for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the destruction of suffering and grief, for winning the right path, for realizing nirvana, namely, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Chapter 6. The 5 faculties. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 5 roots or faculties, indriyani. These are the 5 roots that give rise to other wholesome dharmas. The 5 sense organs can be entrances to the hells. At the same time, they can be some of the most important entrances to the great enlightenment, for with them, we create karmas and sins, but also with them, we can practice the right way. First, virtue of belief. Faith or sense of belief in the triple gem and the 4 noble truths. Srathandriya also means the mind of faith. Faith in a religion, unlike intellectual learning, does not enable a believer to have the power to save others as well as himself if he understands it only in theory. When he believes from the depths of his heart, his belief produces power. His faith cannot be said to be true until he attains such a mental state. Second, virtue of active vigor. Energy, vigor, or sense of endeavor or vigor to cultivate good deeds. The spirit endeavoring purely and incessantly. Faith alone is not enough. Our religious lives cannot be true unless we maintain our faith purely and constantly endeavor, so that our religious spirit does not weaken or lose its power. Third, virtue of mindfulness. Memory or mindfulness or sense of memory or right memory. The mind that always focuses upon the Buddha. Practically speaking, of course, it is impossible for us to completely forget the Buddha for even a moment. When a student devotes himself to his studies or when an adult is entirely absorbed in his work, he must concentrate on one object. Doing so accords with the way to Buddhahood. While devoting ourselves to a particular object, we reflect, I am caused to live by the Buddha. When we complete a difficult task, we feel relieved. We thank the Buddha, saying, how lucky I am. I am protected by the Buddha. When an evil thought flashes across our mind or we suddenly feel angry, we instantly examine ourselves, thinking, is this the way to Buddhahood? The mind that thus keeps the Buddha in mind at all times is sense of memory. Fourth, virtue of concentration. Sense of meditation or visionary meditation, samadhi, or virtue of concentration. The sense of meditation implies a determined mind. Once we have faith in a religion, we are never agitated by anything, whatever may happen. We bear patiently all persecution and temptation, and we continue to believe only in one religion. We must constantly maintain such firm determination, never becoming discouraged. We cannot be said to be real people with a religious faith unless we have such a mental attitude. Fifth, virtue of wisdom or awareness. Sense of wisdom or thinking of the truth. The wisdom that people of religion must maintain. This is not a self-centered wisdom, but the true wisdom that we obtain when we perfectly free ourselves from ego and delusion. So long as we have this wisdom, we will not take the wrong way. We can say the same thing of our belief in religion itself, not to mention in our daily lives. If we are attached to a selfish small desire, we are apt to stray toward a mistaken religion. However earnestly we may believe in it, endeavoring to practice its teaching, keeping it in mind, and devoting ourselves to it, we cannot be saved because of its basically wrong teaching, and we sink farther and farther into the world of illusion. There are many instances around us of people following such a course. Although sense of wisdom is mentioned as the last of the 5 organs leading man to good conduct, it should be the first in the order in which we enter a religious life. According to the Aditapariyaya Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya, Volume 5.48.2, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus about the 5 faculties thus: Bhikkhus, there are these 5 faculties. What 5? The faculty of faith, the faculty of energy, the faculty of mindfulness, the faculty of concentration, and the faculty of wisdom. And what, bhikkhus, is the faculty of faith? Here, bhikkhus, the noble disciple, is a person of faith, one who places faith in the enlightenment of the Tathagata. Thus, the Blessed One is an arahant, fully enlightened, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of the world, unsurpassed leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the Blessed One. And what, bhikkhus, is the faculty of energy? Here, bhikkhus, the noble disciple dwells with energy aroused for the abandoning of unwholesome states and the acquisition of wholesome states. He is strong, valiant, not shirking the responsibility of cultivating wholesome states. He generates desire for the non-arising of unarisen evil unwholesome states. He makes an effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind, and strives. He generates desire for the abandoning of arisen evil unwholesome states. He makes an effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind, and strives. He generates desire for the arising of unarisen wholesome states. He makes an effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind, and strives. He generates desire for the maintenance of arisen wholesome states, for their non-decline, increase, expansion, and fulfillment by development. He makes an effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind, and strives. This is called the faculty of energy. And what, Bhikkhu, is the faculty of mindfulness? Here, Bhikkhu, the noble disciple, is mindful, possessing supreme mindfulness and discernment, one who remembers and recollects what was done long ago and said long ago. He dwells contemplating the body and the body, feelings in feelings, mind in mind, mental phenomena in mental phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having put away covetousness and displeasure in regard to the world. This is called the faculty of mindfulness. And what, Bhikkhu, is the faculty of concentration? Here, Bhikkhu, the noble disciple, having made relinquishment the object, gains concentration, gains one-pointedness of mind. Secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought and examination, with rapture and happiness born of seclusion. With the subsiding of thought and examination, he enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought and examination, and has rapture and happiness born of concentration. With the fading away as well of rapture, he dwells equanimous and mindful and clearly comprehending. He experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare. He is equanimous, mindful, one who dwells happily. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, he enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, and includes the purification of mindfulness by equanimity. This is called the faculty of concentration. And what, Bhikkhu, is the faculty of wisdom? Here, Bhikkhu, the noble disciple, is wise. He possesses wisdom directed to arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the origin of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the cessation of suffering. He understands as it really is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom. These, Bhikkhu, are the five faculties. Chapter 7. The Five Powers. The five powers are faculties for any cultivator, or the powers of five spiritual faculties which are developed through strengthening the five roots. Thus in Buddhism, power or ability is always used as the sense organs to discern the truth. In Mahayana Buddhism, it is the eighth perfection, paramita, of the tenfold list of perfections that a bodhisattva cultivates on the path to Buddhahood. It is developed on the eighth bodhisattva level, bhumi. First, power of faith, also called force of belief, which precludes all false belief or the faith to believe. Second, power of zeal, also called force of active vigor, which leads to overcoming all obstacles or the will to make the endeavor. Third, power of memory, also called mindfulness, or force of mindfulness, which is achieved through meditation or the faculty of alertness. Fourth, power of meditation, dhyana, also called force of concentration, which leads to eliminate all passions and desires or the ability to concentrate one's mind. Fifth, power of wisdom, also called force of wisdom, which rests on insight into the Four Noble Truths and leads to the knowledge that liberates the ability to maintain clear wisdom. Besides, there is also a tenfold list of qualities that in both Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana are said to be unique to fully awakened Buddhas, Samyak Sambuddha. 1. Power of knowledge of what is possible and what is impossible, or the power to distinguish right from wrong, Sthanasthana Jnana Bala. Power of knowledge of retributions of actions, or the power of knowing karmic retributions throughout the 3 periods of time, Karma Vipaka Jnana Bala. 3. Power of knowledge of the concentration. 4. Power of knowledge of the relative qualities of beings, or the power of complete knowledge of the powers and faculties of all beings, Indhu Parapara Jnana Bala. 5. Power of knowledge of the various intentions of beings, or the power of complete knowledge of the desires or moral direction of every being, Nanadhamukti Jnana Bala. 6. Power of knowledge of the various states of beings, or the power of knowing the states of others, Nanadhatu Jnana Bala. 7. Power of knowledge of the ways in which beings go everywhere within cyclic existence and nirvana, Sarvatragamini Pratipajnana Bala. 8. Power of knowledge of former abodes, Purvanivasa Jnana Bala. 9. Power of knowledge of death and rebirth, Sayutyupapada Jnana Bala. 10. Power of knowledge that the defilements have been extinguished, Asrava Jnana Bala. The 5 powers include the power of faith or force of belief, which precludes all false belief, power of zeal or force of active vigor, which leads to overcoming all obstacles, power of memory, or mindfulness, or force of mindfulness, which is achieved through meditation, power of meditation, dhyana, or force of concentration, which leads to eliminate all passions and desires, and power of wisdom, awareness, or force of wisdom, which rests on insight into the 4 noble truths, and leads to the knowledge that liberates. Chapter 8. The 7 Bodhi shares. The Buddha always told his disciples, all of the factors of enlightenment bring extraordinary benefits. Once fully developed, they have the power to bring samsaric suffering to an end. This means that the perpetual cyclical birth and death of beings who are composed of mental and physical phenomena can come to a complete stop. Besides, these factors of enlightenment also have the capacity to pulverize Mara's armies, the destructive inner forces which keep us bound on the wheel of suffering and rebirth. The Buddha and enlightened ones develop the factors of enlightenment and are thus able to transcend all 3 realms of sensual pleasures, realm of subtle forms and formless realms. When fully developed, these factors of enlightenment bring practitioners to attain the peace and joy of nirvana. In this they are comparable to strong and effective medicine. They confer the strength of mind necessary to withstand the ups and downs of life. Moreover, they often cure physical and mental illnesses. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 7 limbs, factors, of enlightenment, or the 7 Bodhi shares. Practicing the 7 awakening states will result in the following achievements: elimination of evil, development of virtue, feeling of cheerfulness versus suffering, final enlightenment. Buddhist practitioners should always remember that when all these 7 factors of enlightenment are cultivated and brought to maturity, the mind becomes liberated from all kinds of bondage as well from all kinds of sufferings and afflictions. Cultivators cannot become enlightened by merely gazing into the sky or just look down on earth. Cultivators cannot obtain the way by simply reading books or studying the scriptures, nor by thinking, nor by wishing for becoming Buddha. According to the Sanjiti Sutta in the long discourses of the Buddha, there are 7 limbs, factors, of enlightenment, or the 7 Bodhi shares. They are necessary conditions or prerequisites which cause enlightenment to arise. Practicing the 7 awakening states will result in the following achievements: elimination of evil, development of virtue, feeling of cheerfulness versus suffering, final enlightenment. The word bhujanga is a Pali term for factors of enlightenment. It is made up of bodhi, which means enlightenment or an enlightened person, and anga is a causative factor. Thus a bhujanga is a causative factor of an enlightened being, or a cause for enlightenment. A second sense of the word bhujanga is based on alternative meanings of its 2 Pali roots. Thus the alternative meaning of Bodhi is the knowledge that comprehends or sees the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. Sometimes, 7 factors of enlightenment are known as Sambhajanga. The prefix sam means full or complete, however, the prefix does not change the meaning of the 7 factors of enlightenment. All practitioners come to understand the Four Noble Truths to some extent, but according to Buddhism, true comprehension of them requires a particular transforming moment of consciousness, known as path consciousness. This is one of the culminating insights of meditation practice, for it includes the experience of nirvana. Once a practitioner has experienced this, he or she is deeply knows the Four Noble Truths, and thus is considered to contain the bhajangas inside him or herself. Such a person is called noble. Thus, bhajangas or enlightenment factors also are parts or qualities of a noble person. The 7 factors of enlightenment include selection of the proper dharma, constant effort, cheerfulness or high spirits, peaceful mind, remembrance of the dharma, concentration ability, and non-attachment ability. Zen practitioners can find each one of the 7 factors of enlightenment in all phases of meditation practices. Zen practitioners should always remember the Buddha's reminder. If the 4 foundations of mindfulness are practiced persistently and repeatedly, the 7 factors of enlightenment will be automatically and fully developed. Thus, the Buddha himself emphasized the relationships between Zen and the 7 factors of enlightenment very clearly. However, one does not become enlightened by merely gazing into the sky or looking around on the earth. One does not enlightened by reading or studying the scriptures, nor by thinking, nor by wishing for enlightened state to burst into one's mind. There are certain necessary conditions or prerequisites which cause enlightenment to arise. How can one develop these factors in himself or herself? By means of cultivation of precepts, meditation, and wisdom. First, selection of the proper dharma. This means keen investigation of phenomena or dharma, selection of the proper dharma. The investigation of the dharma is the quality of the mind that is investigating, probing, and analyzing the mind-body process with a silent and peaceful mind, and not with thoughts, not on the conceptual level. It is the sharp analytical knowledge of understanding the true nature of all constituent things, animate or inanimate, human or divine. It is seeing things in their proper perspective. Only through meditation we can see all component things in their fundamental elements, right down to their ultimates. Through keen meditation and investigation, one understands clearly the process of all things. With the investigation of the Dharma, Zen practitioners investigate things intuitively and experientially to see how the whole process is working. This is another name for the wisdom factor, that light in the mind which illuminates everything that is happening. When investigation is cultivated, it is seen that everything in our mind and body is in a state of flux. There is nothing permanent, everything is arising and vanishing continually. Both consciousness and objects are coming and going. There is nothing to take a stand on, neither is there any place for them to stay securely. Under the light of the investigation of the Dharma, everything is in continual transformation. Through this factor of investigation, Zen practitioners will deeply experience and understand the nature of impermanence. We will experience on the deepest levels that the mind is just a continual flow of phenomena, thoughts, images, emotions, moods, and so on, that the body is a collection of vibrations and of sensations, nothing to cling on. With this experience of impermanence comes a deep intuitive understanding that there is nothing in the mind-body process which is going to give lasting happiness. In other words, no lasting satisfaction, completion, or perfection is possible because it is all continually passing away. It is like trying to find happiness or security in a bubble of water. The moment it is touched, it is gone. As a matter of fact, destruction is happening from moment to moment in this world. All compounded things pass through the inconceivably rapid moments of arising, reaching a peak and ceasing, just as a river in flood sweeps to climax and fades away. The whole universe is constantly changing, not remaining the same for 2 consecutive moments. All things in fact are subject to conditions, causes and effects. What is impermanent and not lasting, producing painful or sorrow fruit? There doesn't exist a so-called permanent and everlasting soul or self. The true nature of the 3 characteristics, or laws of transiency, sorrow, and non-self. Second, constant effort. Energy, zeal or undeflected progress. It is a mental property and the 6th limb of the Noble Eightfold Path. They're called right effort. Effort is the energy expended to direct the mind persistently, continuously in meditation, and toward the object of observation. Zen practitioners should have courageous efforts in meditation practices. The Buddha has not proclaimed himself a savior willing and able to take upon himself the evil of all sentient beings. He is only a path revealer. Each one of us must put forth the necessary effort and work out his own deliverance with heedfulness. He cannot walk for anyone on this path. Thus he advised that each Buddhist should be sincerely zealous, strong and firm, in the purpose of reaching the final aim. He also advised, "Be islands unto yourselves, be your own refuge." Thus did the Master exhort his followers to acquire self-reliance. A follower of the Buddha should not under any circumstances relinquish hope and effort, for the Buddha was one who never gave up courage and effort, even as a bodhisattva. Zen practitioners should be patient and accept difficulties and challenges during practicing meditation, should leave behind habits and hobbies of ordinary life, and should try their best to practice meditation continually. One of the most difficult things for Zen practitioners is the wandering mind. It never wants to stay on the object you want to observe, but rather wandering around and around all day long. In our body, any time we cross our legs to practice meditation, we are likely to experience some level of pain in our body. Sometimes, we decide to try to sit still for an hour with our legs crossed, but only after 10 minutes, we feel numb in our feet and stiff in our neck, and so on, and so on. Zen practitioners need courageous effort to face difficulties and challenges. Once we develop our courageous effort, the mind gains strength to bear with pain in a patient and courageous way. Effort has the power to freshen the mind and keep it strong in any difficult circumstances. Zen practitioners should always have the effort and energy to cultivate the following 4 things. Effort to initiate virtues not yet arisen, effort to consolidate, increase, and not deteriorate virtues already arisen, effort not to initiate sins not yet arisen, effort to eliminate sins already arisen. In the Dhammapada Sutta, sentence 280, the Buddha taught, "The idler who does not strive, who, though young and strong, is full of sloth, who is weak in resolution and thought, that lazy and idle man, will never find the way to wisdom, the way to enlightenment and deliverance." Third, cheerfulness or high spirits. Rapture means joy, happiness, or delight, but a special characteristic of rapture is that it can pervade associated mental states, making them delight and happy and bringing a sense of deep satisfaction. Pity is a mental property, and is a quality which deeply influences both the body and mind. A man lacking in this quality cannot advance along the path to enlightenment. In him there will always arise sullen indifference to the Dharma, an aversion to the practice of meditation, and morbid manifestations. Zen practitioners should always remember that rapture only develops when the mind is relatively clean of afflictions. In order for us to be clean of afflictions, we have no other choices but to be mindful from moment to moment, so that concentration arises and the afflictions are eliminated. Therefore, we must be developing rapture through mindfulness continuously, whether when we are walking, standing, lying down, sitting, or doing other tasks. To practice pity or joy, Buddhist cultivators should always remember that happiness is a matter of the mind, and it should never be sought in external and material things, though they may be instrumental in any way. Only those who possess the quality of contentment can experience real happiness. Buddhist cultivators should always remember that there is a vast difference between pleasure and happiness. Pleasure, or pleasant feeling, is something very momentary and fleeting. Pleasant feeling may be an indicative sign of suffering, for what we hug in great glee this moment may turn to be a source of suffering the next moment. Seeing a form, hearing a sound, perceiving an odor, tasting a flavor, feeling some tangible thing, or cognizing an idea, we are usually moved, and from those sense objects and mental objects, we experience a certain degree of pleasure. However, they are all temporary, they are only a passing show of phenomena. Real happiness or rapture does not come through grasping or clinging to things, animate or inanimate, but from giving up. The Buddha left behind his glorious palace, beautiful wife, good son, as well as kingdom authority, and became a homeless monk. Eventually he attained enlightenment and deliverance. Do we have any other choices if we wish to attain enlightenment and deliverance? Fourth, peaceful mind. Peaceful mind means ease, tranquility, riddance of all grossness or weight of body or mind, so that they may be light, free and at ease. Many people's minds are always in a state of agitation all the time. Their minds wandering here and there non-stop. When the mind is scattered, it is difficult for us to control our actions. On the contrary, we begin to act according to whims and fancies without considering properly whether an action is wholesome or not. There are two kinds of tranquility. The calm of the body means the calm of all mental properties, rather than the only physical body. In other words, calm of the aggregates of form, feeling, perception, and the volitional activities or conformations, the calm of the mind, or the calm of the aggregate of consciousness. A man who cultivates calm of the mind does not get upset, confused or excited when confronted with the 8 vicissitudes, 8 winds or influences of the world. He is able to understand the rise and fall, come into being and pass away, as well as the momentary fragility of all things. Buddhist practitioners should remember when all the passions are subdued, and our mind will become cooler and cooler, because it is not burning with lust or anger anymore. It is hard to tranquilize the mind. It trembles and it is unsteady, difficult to guard and hold back. In the Dhammapada, from sentences 33 to 36, the Buddha taught, "The mind quivers like a fish just taken from its watery home and thrown on the dry ground. It wanders at will. Calmness is not weakness. Only a person of culture is able to present the calm attitude at all times. It is not so difficult to be calm under favorable circumstances, but it is indeed difficult for a Buddhist to remain calm in the midst of unfavorable circumstances. Only the calm mind can help the aspirant to achieve enlightenment and deliverance." Fifth, remembrance of the Dharma. Mindfulness, relinquishment, or power of remembering the various states passed through in contemplation. It is the instrument most efficacious in self-mastery. Besides, sati also means the power of observation, and the function of mindfulness is to keep the object always in view, neither forgetting it nor allowing it to disappear out of our contemplation. Remembrance of the Dharma includes meditation and full realization on the impurity of the body. When mindfulness is present, the object of observation will be noted without forgetfulness. As a matter of fact, there is nothing special Buddhist practitioners have to do to eliminate unskillful states, or to make skillful ones happen, except to be aware of the moment, because awareness itself is the purifying force. Contemplation of feeling or understanding that feeling is suffering, contemplation of mind, and contemplation of thought, and contemplation of the no-self of mental objects. A person cannot be heedful unless he is fully controlling all his actions, whether they are mental, verbal or physical at every moment of his walking life. In other words, he must zealously observe all commandments required of him. In the Dhyana Nikaya Sutra, the Buddha's final admonition to his disciples before entering the nirvana. Transient are all component things. Work out your deliverance with mindfulness. Venerable Saripura also advised everybody with his last words. Strive on with mindfulness to obtain your deliverance. In the Anguttara Nikaya Sutra, the Buddha taught, "Monks, I know not of any other single thing of such power to cause the arising of good thoughts if not yet arisen, or to cause the waning of evil thoughts if already arisen, as heedfulness. In him who is heedful, good thoughts not yet arisen, do arise, and evil thoughts, if arisen, do wane." Sixth, concentration ability. Concentration has the ability to keep the mind in stability. Concentration, or power to keep the mind in a given realm undiverted. Concentration is a mental factor which lands on the object of observation. Concentration also pricks into, penetrates into, and stays in the object of observation. The nature of concentration is non-dispersal, non-dissipation, and non-scatteredness. A mind of concentration is a mind that sticks with the object of observation, sinks into it, and remains still and calm in it. During practicing of meditation, Buddhist practitioners should stick their mind to the object of observation or contemplate directly mental or physical phenomena, without resorting to the thinking process at all. Although the moment of samadhi is momentary, such samadhi can arise from moment to moment without breaks in between, if we try to practice continuously. Besides, concentration also has the ability to collect the mind together. It can keep all other mental factors in a group, so that they do not scatter or disperse. Thus, the mind remains firmly embedded in the object. It is only the tranquilized mind that can easily concentrate on a subject of meditation. Once the mind is quiet and still, wisdom will arise and we can see things as they really are. Therefore, concentration is the most proximate cause for the unfolding of wisdom. The unified mind brings the 5 hindrances under subjugation: sensual desire, anger, stiffness and torpor, agitation and worry, and doubt hindrances, for step by step, wisdom will penetrate into more and more profound levels of truth. At that time, Zen practitioners will see clearly the natures of impermanence, suffering, and absence of self of all things, and therefore, no hindrance can dominate us anymore. Many are the impediments that confront a meditator, an aspirant for enlightenment, especially the 5 hindrances that hinder concentrative thoughts and obstruct the way to deliverance. Concentration is the intensified steadiness of the mind comparable to an unflickering flame of a lamp in a windless place. Concentration has the ability to maintain the mind and the mental properties in a state of balance. It is concentration that fixes the mind right and causes it to be unmoved, dispels passions, and not only helps the mind undisturbed, but also helps bring purity and placidity of mind. One who is intent to practice concentration should always zealously observe Buddhist commandments, for it is virtue that nourishes mental life and make it coherent and calm. 7th, non-attachment ability. Equanimity means complete abandonment, detachment, or indifferent to all disturbances of the subconscious or ecstatic mind. The Sanskrit word upeksa means equanimity, calmness, unbias, unprejudice, and so on. In Zen, a mind of complete abandonment is a mind that remains unbiased and calm when confronting difficulties and challenges. A mind of equanimity is a state of balancing of energy, and it can be achieved in daily cultivation. According to the Abhidharma, equanimity means neutrality. It is mental equipoise and not hedonic indifference. Equanimity is the result of a calm concentrative mind. According to the Buddha, the best way to bring about equanimity is wise attention and continuous mindfulness. Once a mind of equanimity is developed, one moment of equanimity causes a succeeding moment of equanimity to arise, and so on. In our nowadays violent society, amidst the welter of experience, gain and loss, good repute and ill repute, praise and blame, happiness and suffering, A man with the mind of equanimity will never waver. Zen practitioners have the mind of equanimity which understands that there is no one to own anything. In Dharmapada, sentence 83, the Buddha taught, "Truly the good give up longing for everything. The good sage is not with thoughts of craving. Touched by happiness or by pain, the wise show neither elation nor depression." A man who has reached perfect neutrality through the cultivation of equanimity always avoids the following four wrong paths: the path of greed, hate, cowardice, and delusion. A man who has reached perfect neutrality through cultivation of equanimity always has his serene neutrality, which enables him to see all beings impartially. Chapter 9. The Noble Eightfold Path. After mighty and terrible struggles with himself, the Buddha had conquered in his body all those natural defects and human appetites and desires that prevent our ability of seeing the truth. He had to overcome all the bad influences of the sinful world around him. Like a soldier fighting desperately in battle against many enemies, he struggled like a hero who conquers. He eventually gained his objects. He also discovered supportive conditions leading to Bodhi or Buddhahood. In these conditions, the Noble Eightfold Path is the noble truths that can help us prevent problems or deal with any problems we may come across in our daily life. This is the path that leads to the end of sufferings and afflictions. If we follow it, we are on the way to less suffering and more happiness. The 8 right, correct ways. The path leading to release from suffering, the goal of the third in the Four Noble Truths. These are 8 in the 37 Bodhi ways to enlightenment. Practicing the Noble Eightfold Path can bring about real advantages, such as improvement of personal conditions. It is due to the elimination of all evil thoughts, words, and actions that we may commit in our daily life, and to the continuing practice of charitable work, improvement of living conditions. If everyone practiced this noble path, the world we are living now would be devoid of all miseries and sufferings caused by hatred, struggle, and war between men and men, countries and countries, or peoples and peoples. Peace would reign forever on earth. Besides, to cultivate the Eightfold Noble Path also means to practice meditation to attain of enlightenment or Bodhi awareness. The Noble Eightfold Path is the first basic condition for attaining Bodhi consciousness that is untarnished, while Alaya consciousness is still defiled. First, practitioners of mindfulness should try to understand the natural laws which govern our everyday life. Right understanding or right view is viewing things objectively, seeing them and reporting them exactly as they are without being influenced by prejudice or emotion. Right view helps differentiate the true from the false and determines the true religious path for attaining liberation. Right understanding means to understand the natural laws which govern our everyday life. One of the most important of these is the law of karma. The law of cause and effect. Every action brings a certain result, without any exception. There is no such no wholesome nor unwholesome in Buddhism. Buddhist practitioners should always remember that whenever we act with greed, hatred, or delusion, pain and suffering come back to us. On the contrary, when our actions are motivated by generosity, love or wisdom, the results are happiness and peace. Devout Buddhists should always have a mindful mind to skillfully integrate the understanding of the law of karma into our lives. Right understanding also means profoundly and subtly understand our true nature. In Buddhism, right understanding means the understanding of suffering or the unsatisfactory nature of all phenomenal existence, its arising, its cessation, and the path leading to its cessation. Right understanding or right view is one of the 2 trainings in wisdom, the other training is right thought. Right understanding can be said to mean seeing things as they really are, or understanding the real truth about things, rather than simply seeing them as they appear to be. According to Buddhist point of view, it means insight, penetrative understanding, or seeing beneath the surface of things, etc. Under the lens of the Four Noble Truths, interdependent origination, impermanence, impersonality, and so forth. Right understanding can be acquired by ourselves or by acquiring the truths that are shown by others. The process of acquiring right understanding must follow the following order. First, we must observe objectively the facts which we are presented, then consider their significance. It is to say, first to study and then to consider and examine them, and finally attaining right understanding through contemplation. At this point, the two types of understanding, either by ourselves or through others, become indistinguishable. To summarize, the process of acquiring right understanding are as follows: to observe and to study, to examine intellectually what we have observed and studied, to contemplate what we have examined. In short, right understanding means the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. The truths of suffering and its causes perpetuate cyclic existence. The truths of cessation and the path are the way to liberation. Through right understanding and right thought we eliminate greed, anger and ignorance. The mind supported by wisdom will bring forth the right understanding, which help us wholly and entirely free from the intoxication of sense desire, from becoming, bhava, wrong views, ditthi, and ignorance, avidya. Buddhist practitioners should develop right understanding by seeing impermanence, suffering, and not self in everything, which leads to detachment and loss infatuation. Detachment is not aversion. An aversion to something we once liked is temporary, and the craving for it will return. Practitioners do not seek for a life of pleasure, but to find peace. Peace is within oneself, to be found in the same place as agitation and suffering. It is not found in a forest or on a hilltop, nor is it given by a teacher. Practitioners meditate to investigate suffering, see its causes, and put an end to them right at the very moment, rather dealing with their effects later on. Right understanding, in the ultimate sense, is to understand life as it really is. For this, one needs a clear comprehension of the Four Noble Truths, namely, the truth of suffering or unsatisfactoriness, the arising of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Right understanding means to understand things as they really are and not as they appear to be. It is important to realize that right understanding in Buddhism has a special meaning which differs from that popularly attributed to it. In Buddhism, right understanding is the application of insight to the five aggregates of clinging and understanding their true nature, that is, understanding oneself. It is self-examination and self-observation. Right understanding is the understanding of suffering or the unsatisfactory nature of all phenomenal existence, its arising, its cessation, and the path leading to its cessation. Right understanding is of the highest importance in the Eightfold Noble Path, for the remaining 7 factors of the path are guided by it. It ensures that right thoughts are held and it cooperates ideas, when as a result thoughts and ideas become clear and wholesome. Man's speech and action are also brought into proper relation. Moreover, it is through right understanding that one gives up harmful or profitless effort and cultivates right effort, which aids the development of right mindfulness. Right effort and right mindfulness guided by right understanding bring about right concentration. Thus, right understanding, which is the mainspring in Buddhism, causes the other limbs of the coordinate system to move in proper relation. There are 2 conditions that are conducive to right understanding. Hearing from others, that is, hearing the correct law, sadhamma, or from others, paradigosa, and systematic attention or wise attention, yunisomanasakara. The first condition is external, that is, what we get from outside, while the second is internal, what we cultivate. Manasakara literally means doing in the mind. What we hear gives us food for thought and guides us in forming our own views. It is, therefore, necessary to listen, but only to that which is conducive to right understanding, and to avoid all the harmful and unwholesome utterances of others which prevent straight thinking. The second condition, systematic attention, is more difficult to cultivate because it entails constant awareness of the things that one meets with in everyday life. The word unisomanasakara, which is often used in the discourses, is most important, for it enables one to see things deeply. Uniso literally means by way of womb instead of only on the surface. Metaphorically, therefore, it is radical or reasoned attention. These two conditions, learning and systematic attention, together help to develop right understanding. One who seeks truth is not satisfied with surface knowledge, with the mere external appearance of things, but wants to dig deep and see what is beyond the reach of naked eye. That is the sort of search encouraged in Buddhism, for it leads to right understanding. The man of analysis states a thing after resolving it into its various qualities, which he puts in proper order, making everything plain. He does not state things unitarily, looking at them as a whole, but divides them up according to their outstanding features, so that the conventional and the highest truth can be understood unmixed. The Buddha was discriminative and analytical to the highest degree. As a scientist resolves a limb into tissues and the tissues into cells, the Buddha analyzed all component and conditioned things into their fundamental elements, right down to their ultimates, and condemned shallow thinking, unsystematic attention, which tends to make man muddle-headed and hinders the investigation of the true nature of things. It is through right understanding that one sees cause and effect, the arising and ceasing of all conditioned things. The truth of the Dhamma can be only grasped in that way, and not through blind belief, wrong view, speculation, or even by abstract philosophy. According to the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says, "This Dhamma is for the wise and not for the unwise." The Nikaya also explains the ways and means of attaining wisdom by stages and avoiding false views. Right understanding permeates the entire teaching, pervades every part and aspect of the Dhamma and functions as the keynote of Buddhism. Due to lack of right understanding, the ordinary man is blind to the true nature of life and fails to see the universal fact of life, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. He does not even try to grasp these facts, but hastily considers the doctrine as pessimism. It is natural, perhaps, for beings engrossed in mundane pleasures, beings who crave more and more for gratification of the senses and hate pain, to resent the very idea of suffering and turn their back on it. They do not, however, realize that even as they condemn the idea of suffering and adhere to their own convenient and optimistic view of things, they are still being oppressed by the ever-recurring unsatisfactory nature of life. Second, Buddhist practitioners should be free from sensual desire, ill will, and cruelty. Right thought means thoughts that are free from sensual desire, ill will, and cruelty. Thoughts free from ill will means thoughts that are free from anger, for when anger is burning in the mind, both us and people around us will suffer. Right thoughts includes thoughts of renunciation, goodwill, and of compassion, or non-harm. These thoughts are to be cultivated and extended towards all living beings regardless of race, caste, clan, or creed. As they embrace all that breathes, there are no compromising limitations. Right thought means that our reflection must be consistent with common sense, useful both to others and ourselves. We must strive to correct our faults, or change our wicked opinions. While meditating on the noble formula of precept, concentration, and wisdom, we must realize that ignorance is the main cause of suffering, the root of all wicked acts. Therefore, we must look for a way to get rid of suffering for us and for others. A mind free from sensual lust, ill will, and cruelty. Right thought means resolve in favor of renunciation, goodwill, and non-harming of sentient beings. Through meditation, we can recognize anger and let it go. At that time, the mind becomes light and easy, expressing its natural loving kindness. Also through meditation, we can recognize cruelty and let it go. At that time, we will have the mind of understanding the suffering of others and wanting to alleviate it. Right thought is one of the two trainings in wisdom, the other training is right view or right understanding. Right thought or right thinking means avoiding attachment and aversion. According to Buddhism, The causes of suffering and afflictions are said to be ignorance, attachment, and aversion. When right understanding removes ignorance, right thought removes attachment and aversion. Therefore, right understanding and right thought remove the causes of suffering. To remove attachment and greed, we must cultivate renunciation, while to remove aversion and anger, we must cultivate love and compassion. Renunciation is developed by contemplating the unsatisfactory nature of existence, especially the unsatisfactory nature of pleasures of the senses, for pleasures of the sense are likened to salt water. The more we drink, the more we feel thirsty. Through understanding the unsatisfactory nature of existence and recognizing the undesirable consequences of pleasures of the senses, we can easily cultivate renunciation and detachment. To develop love and compassion through recognizing the essential equality of all living beings. Like human beings, all other beings fear death and tremble at the idea of punishment. Understanding this, we should not kill other beings or cause them to be killed. Like human beings, all other beings desire life and happiness. Understanding this, we should not place ourselves above others or regard ourselves any differently from the way we regard others. Right thought means the thoughts of non-attachment, benevolence and non-harmfulness. On a deeper level, right thought refers to the mind that subtly analyzes emptiness, thus leading us to perceive it directly. Third, practitioners of mindfulness should not speak what is untrue. Right speech means not speaking what is untrue, or using slanderous, abusive or harsh language, rather, speaking words which are honest and helpful, creating a vibration of peace and harmony. Right speech implies sincere, sound, impartial, direct, not distorting, cautious, affable, harmless, useful words and discourses. Avoidance of lying, slander and gossip, false and idle talk, or abstaining from lying, tale-bearing, harsh words, and foolish babble. Right speech is one of the methods that can help us to live in harmony with other people and the world. Correct or right speech or perfect speech is one of the 3 higher trainings in ethics. 2 other trainings are right action and right livelihood. Speech can influence millions of people. It is said that a harsh word can wound more deeply than a weapon, whereas a gentle word can change the heart and mind of even the most hardened criminal. Therefore, right speech implies respect for truth and respect for the well-being of others. Right speech begins with avoiding 4 destructive actions of speech: lying, divisive words, harsh words and idle talk. Not only that, devout Buddhists should always try to communicate in a way pleasing to others. Rather than venting our anger or frustration onto another, devout Buddhists should think about effective ways to communicate our needs and feelings to them. Besides, right speech also means to sincerely make an effort to notice and comment upon others' good qualities and achievements, or to console people in time of grief, or to teach people Dharma. Speech is a powerful tool to influence others, and if we use it wisely, many people will benefit. Speech can influence millions of people. It is said that a harsh word can wound more deeply than a weapon, whereas a gentle word can change the heart and mind of even the most hardened criminal. Therefore, right speech implies respect for truth and respect for the well-being of others. It is to say right speech means the avoidance of lying, backbiting or slander, harsh speech and idle talk. Fourth, practitioners of mindfulness should choose a right way to do things for ourselves. Right action means to choose a right way to do things for ourselves, not killing, not inflicting pain and afflictions on others, not stealing, not taking what is not ours, not committing sexual misconduct, and not causing suffering to others out of greed or desire for pleasant sensations. Right action involves action beneficial to both others and ourselves. We must always act for the happiness of the community, conforming to our sense of duty, without any ulterior motive for damaging others' interests, occupations, positions, honors, or lives. We must also keep strict control of our action, speech, and mind, carrying out 10 meritorious actions and avoiding 10 evil ones. Right action also means to abstain from injuring living beings, from stealing and from unlawful sexual intercourse. No one among us can avoid our past karma, however, we have the right to choose the right way to do things for ourselves. To say this so we can understand that we have to reap what we sowed in the past, however, we have the right to try to cultivate to have a more peaceful life in the present time. Right action is one of the 3 higher trainings in ethics. 2 other trainings are right speech and right livelihood. Right action implies respect for life, respect for property, and respect for personal relationships. Respect for life means not to kill or tell others to kill living beings. Respect for property means not to steal or tell others to steal. Respect for personal relationships means to avoid sexual misconduct, avoid adultery. Right action means acting properly. Right action can help us avoid creating the 3 destructive actions of the body: killing, stealing, and unwise sexual behavior. Right action teaches us to be aware of the effects of our actions on others. Once we possess right action, instead of doing whatever pleases us at the moment, we'll be considerate of others, and of course, automatically our relationships will improve, and others will be happier in our company. Right action also includes giving old people a hand in their housework, helping storm and flood victims, and rescuing people from danger, and so on. 5th, practitioners of mindfulness should choose a right career for ourselves. Right livelihood means to choose a right career for ourselves, which is not harmful to others, not having work which involves killing, stealing, or dishonesty. Similar to right action, right livelihood involves action beneficial to both others and ourselves. While working to earn a living, we must always act for the happiness of the community, conforming to our sense of duty, without any ulterior motive for damaging others' interests, occupations, positions, honors, or lives. We must also keep strict control of our action, speech, and mind, carrying out 10 meritorious actions and avoiding 10 evil ones. Right action also means to abstain from injuring living beings, from stealing, and from unlawful sexual intercourse. Perfect conduct also means avoidance of actions that conflict with moral discipline. Right livelihood means earning a living in a way that does not violate basic moral values. Right livelihood is an extension of the rules of right action to our roles as breadwinners in society. Right livelihood also means that to earn a living in an appropriate way. Devout Buddhists should not engage in any of the physical or verbal negative actions to earn a living, nor should we cause others to do so. Wisdom and understanding in Buddhism must be integrated into our lives, then Buddhism can be called a living Buddhism. No one among us can avoid our past karma, however, we have the right to choose a right career for ourselves, because it is very much within our freedom. To say this so we can understand that we have to reap what we sowed in the past, however, we have the right to try to cultivate to have a more peaceful life in the present time. Right livelihood is one of the 3 higher trainings in ethics. 2 other trainings are right speech and right action. Right livelihood means to have a right work or a right occupation that can help us avoid creating the 3 destructive actions of the body: killing, stealing, and unwise sexual behavior. Right livelihood teaches us to be aware of the effects of our actions on others. Once we possess right action, instead of doing whatever pleases us at the moment, we'll be considerate of others. The Buddha taught, there are 5 kinds of livelihood that are discouraged for Buddhists: trading in animals for food, selling animals for slaughter, slaves, dealing in slaves, arms, selling arms and lethal weapons, poisons, and intoxicants, drugs and alcohol, selling intoxicating and/or poisonous drinks. These 5 are not recommended because they contribute to the destruction of society and violate the values of respect for life and for the welfare of others. Right livelihood is an extension of the rules of right action to our roles as breadwinners in society. In the contrary, Buddhists should live by an honest profession that is free from harm to self and others. According to the Adornment Sutra, right livelihood is a weapon of enlightening beings, leading away from all wrong livelihood. Buddhist practitioners who abide by these can annihilate the afflictions, bondage, and compulsion accumulated by all sentient beings in the long night of ignorance. Sixth, practitioners of mindfulness should be always hard-working, helpful to others and ourselves. Right effort means we must be always hard-working, helpful to others and ourselves. Do not kill, cheat, or lead a wanton gamble life. On the contrary, always try to perform good deeds for having good karma. Correct, right or perfect, zeal or effort or energy also means to try to avoid the arising of evil. Demeritorious things have not yet arisen. Try to overcome the evil, demeritorious things that have already arisen. At the same time, try to produce meritorious things that have not yet arisen, and try to maintain the meritorious things that have already arisen and not let them disappear, but to bring them to growth, to maturity and to the full perfection of development. Right effort also means cultivation of what is karmically wholesome and avoidance of what is karmically unwholesome. When developing right effort, we must be sincere about our thoughts. If we analyze them, we will find that our thoughts are not always good and wholesome. At times they are unwholesome and foolish, though we may not always express them in words and actions or both. Now, if we allow such thoughts to rise repeatedly, it is a bad sign, for when an unhealthy thought is allowed to recur again and again, it tends to become a habit. It is, therefore, essential to make a real effort to keep unwholesome thoughts away from us. Until we succeed in stopping them to rise in our mind, unhealthy thoughts will always be taking possession of our mind. It is not only during the time of meditation that we need to cultivate our right effort. Right effort should be cultivated always whenever possible. In all our speech, actions and behavior, in our daily life, we need right effort to perform our duties wholeheartedly and successfully. If we lack right effort and give in to sloth and indolence, we cannot proceed with our cultivation. Right effort is one of the 3 trainings in meditation. 2 other trainings are right mindfulness and right concentration. Right effort means cultivating a confident attitude toward our undertakings, taking up and pursuing our task with energy, and a will to carry them through to the end. In Buddhism, right effort means cultivating a confident attitude of mind, being attentive and aware. To progress on the path, we need to put our energy into Dharma practice. With enthusiastic effort, we can purify negative actions already done to prevent doing new ones in the future. In addition, effort also is necessary to maintain the virtuous states we've already generated, as well as to induce new ones in the future. 7th, practitioners of mindfulness have correct memory which retains the true and excludes the false. Right remembrance, the 7th of the Eightfold Noble Path, means remembering correctly and thinking correctly. The looking or contemplating on the body and the spirit in such a way as to remain ardent, self-possessed and mindful. Right remembrance means looking on the body and spirit in such a way as to remain ardent, self-possessed and mindful, having overcome both hankering and dejection. Right mindfulness means to give heed to good deed for our own benefit and that of others. According to the Eightfold Noble Path, right mindfulness means the one-pointedness of the mind, and cultivation will help practitioner to have right remembrance. Through practicing meditation, we always have right mindfulness. In fact, in our daily life activities, we should always be aware and attentive. We should always be aware of what we think, say and do. We must concentrate on everything we do before we can do it well. For instance, if we concentrate in class, we would not miss anything the teacher says. Right mindfulness also means remembrance, including old mistakes to repent of, and deep gratitude towards parents, country, humankind, and Buddhist triple gems. Right mindfulness also means the reflection on the present and future events or situations. We must meditate upon human sufferings that are caused by ignorance, and decide to work for alleviating them, irrespective of possible difficulties and boredom. Correct memory which retains the true and excludes the false. Dwell in contemplation of corporeality. Be mindful in putting away worldly greed and grief. Correct mindfulness also means ongoing mindfulness of body, feelings, thinking, and objects of thought. Mindfulness means being aware of what is happening in the present moment. It means noticing the flow of things when walking, to be aware of the movement of the body, in observing the breath, to be aware of the sensations of the in-outer raising falling, to notice thoughts or feelings as they arise or as they disappear. Mindfulness brings the quality of poise, equilibrium and balance to the mind. Mindfulness also keeps the mind sharply focused, with the attitude of sitting back and watching the passing show of our surroundings. The function of the right effort is to be vigilant and check all unhealthy thoughts, and to cultivate, promote and maintain wholesome and pure thoughts arising in a man's mind. Right mindfulness is one of the 3 trainings in meditation. 2 others are right effort and right concentration. Mindfulness is awareness or attention, and as such it means avoiding a distracted or cloudly state of mind. In the practice of the Dharma, right mindfulness plays as a kind of rain upon our minds, for our minds are never concentrated or still. The Buddha taught, the practice of mindfulness means mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of consciousness, and mindfulness of objects of the mind. In short, right mindfulness means to watch our body and mind, and to know what we are doing at all times. Right mindfulness is an important mental factor that enables us to remember and keep our attention on what is beneficial. Right mindfulness plays an important role in meditation, i.e., right mindfulness can help us clear the flurry of thoughts from our minds, and eventually, we'll be able to concentrate single-pointedly on our breath. Right mindfulness is the application or arousing of attention. Be attentive to the activities of the body with the practice of concentration on breathing. Be aware of all forms of feelings and sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, by contemplating their appearance and disappearance within oneself. Be aware whether one's mind is lustful, hatred, deluded, distracted or concentrated. Contemplate the impermanence of all things from arise, stay, change and decay to eliminate attachment. 8th, right concentration. Right concentration or correct concentration. Detached from sensual objects, detached from unwholesome things, and enters into the first, second, third and fourth absorption. Right concentration means a strong concentration of our thoughts on a certain subject, in order to set it clearly, consistent with Buddhist doctrine, and for the benefit of others and ourselves. Right meditation means to keep the mind steady and calm, in order to see clearly the true nature of things. This type of mental practice can make us become more understanding and a happier person. Correct concentration requires the previous steps. Unless one has a concentrated mind that can fix itself calmly and one-pointedly on a single object without being distracted by laxity or excitement, one cannot properly enter into meditation, which requires intense concentration. Cultivating concentration in meditation means to learn to concentrate. In our meditation, we think that noises, cars, voices, sights, and so forth are distractions that come and bother us when we want to be quiet. But who is bothering whom? Actually, we are the ones who go and bother them. The car, the sound, the noise, the sight, and so forth are just following their own nature. We bother things through some false idea that they are outside of us and cling to the ideal of remaining quiet, undisturbed. We should learn to see that it is not things that bother us that we go out to bother them. We should see the world as a mirror. It is all a reflection of mind. When we know this, we can grow in every moment, and every experience reveals truth and brings understanding. Normally, the untrained mind is full of worries and anxieties, so when a bit of tranquility arises from practicing meditation, we easily become attached to it, mistaking states of tranquility for the end of meditation. Sometimes we may even think we have put an end to lust or greed or hatred, only to be overwhelmed by them later on. Actually, it is worse to be caught in calmness than to be stuck in agitation, because at least we will want to escape from agitation, whereas we are content to remain in calmness and not go any further. Thus, when extraordinarily blissful, clear states arise from insight meditation practice, do not cling to them. Although this tranquility has a sweet taste, it too must be seen as impermanent, unsatisfactory, and empty. Practicing meditation without thought of attaining absorption or any special state. Just know whether the mind is calm or not, and, if so, whether a little or a lot. In this way it will develop on its own. Concentration must be firmly established for wisdom to arise. To concentrate the mind is like turning on the switch. There is no light, but we should not waste our time playing with the switch. Likewise, concentration is the empty bowl, and wisdom is the food that fills it and makes the meal. Do not be attached to the object of meditation such as a mantra. Know its purpose. If we succeed in concentrating our mind using the Buddha recitation, let the Buddha recitation go, but it is a mistake to think that Buddha recitation is the end of our cultivation. Right concentration is the intensified steadiness of the mind comparable to the unflickering flame of a lamp in a windless place. It is concentration that fixes the mind right and causes it to be unmoved and undisturbed. The correct practice of samadhi maintains the mind and the mental properties in a state of balance. Many are the mental impediments that confront a practitioner, a meditator, but with support of right effort and right mindfulness, the fully concentrated mind is capable of dispelling the impediments, the passions that disturb man. The perfect concentrated mind is not distracted by sense objects, for it sees things as they are, in their proper perspective. Right concentration is one of the 3 trainings in samadhi. 2 other trainings are right effort and right mindfulness. Right concentration means to concentrate the mind single-pointedly on an object. Our concentration or single-pointedness slowly improves through effort and mindfulness until we attain calm abiding. Right concentration may also help us progress to deeper states of concentration, the actual meditative stabilizations, form and formless realms. Thank you for listening to 37 Limbs of Enlightenment by Thien and Phuc, brought to you by the Buddhist audio bookshelf. We hope this journey through the essential teachings has provided you with valuable insights and guidance on your path to enlightenment. If this audiobook has enlightened your understanding or touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this wisdom with others. Your support is crucial in helping us spread the Buddha's teachings far and wide. We look forward to accompanying you on your next spiritual journey. Until then, may you find peace and clarity in every step of your path. See you on our next book.